Everything changed in a matter of seconds, but the consequences of those seconds, they are going to define an entire generation of football in Houston. Welcome back to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we are pulling back the curtain on a team standing right on the razor's edge of history. Now, before we get into the microscopic details of this situation, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below with what you think about today's breakdown. And if you truly want to support the deep dive cinematic analysis we do here every week at NFL Nexus, consider becoming a channel member. Okay, let's set the stage. The air inside the Houston Texans facility right now is thick, with an almost palpable expectation. You can literally feel it in the silence of the locker room and in the agonizing attention to detail in every single film session. Because this isn't just another season approaching. It is a crucible, a pressurized, suffocating environment where iron is either forged or it completely shatters. Right now, the front office is quietly engaging in a high-stakes billion-dollar game of chess, manipulating salary cap numbers that will shape this franchise for the next decade. Meanwhile, down on the practice field, bodies are being pushed to the absolute, terrifying limits of human endurance, recovering from traumatic structural injuries that would end normal careers. The pressure is absolutely suffocating, and the stakes, they have never, ever been higher. 25 years. Will 2026 be the year they finally break through? You know, the reality of this anniversary is stark. A quarter of a century has passed since this franchise was established in 2002. But the history of this team is haunted by a very specific, agonizing glass ceiling. Look, they've achieved 3 consecutive playoff appearances. They've secured back-to-back-to-back wildcard victories. They have proven, without a shadow of a doubt, that they belong in the postseason conversation. But a wildcard victory is not a ring. For 25 years, they have been desperately hunting for their first-ever AFC Championship appearance. They've knocked on the door, and that door has remained stubbornly, violently shut. And the weight of those 24 previous failed campaigns, it rests squarely on the shoulders of this 2026 roster. It's a massive psychological burden. They aren't just playing the opponents on the schedule this year, they're playing against their own history. And to shatter that history, they have to navigate a complex labyrinth of off-field corporate tension and on-field physical trauma.
Section 1. Stroud's ticking contract clock.
That tension, it begins not on the turf, but in the sterile, high-pressure boardrooms of the front office. Nick Caserio and the Texans management are staring down the barrel of C.J. Stroud's impending mega extension. It's a terrifying race against an exploding quarterback market. Stroud is fresh off his 3rd season as a pro. He is the undisputed face of the franchise. But in the modern NFL, having an elite franchise quarterback is a double-edged sword. It's the absolute key to winning, but it's also a financial ticking time bomb. $50 million annually. Just let that number hang there for a second. When you evaluate the minute, excruciating details of an NFL salary cap, this is the threshold that keeps general managers awake at night. And we need to be perfectly clear about the mechanics here. This isn't just some flashy total contract value for a headline. This is the annual average salary that franchise quarterback contracts are rapidly creeping past. It's a daunting, cap-shattering figure. Paying a single player this magnitude of money dictates every single other decision a franchise can legally make under the CBA. It determines whether you can afford guaranteed money for that elite edge rusher. It decides if you have the prorated signing bonus flexibility for a shutdown corner, or if you have to sacrifice crucial depth on the offensive line. When a quarterback takes up over 20% of your total salary cap, your margin for error in the draft drops to absolute zero. The Texans know that to keep C.J. Stroud, they're going to have to cross this terrifying threshold, locking up massive guarantees that will shape their 53-man roster for years. The only question is, when?
Okay, let's dive into this. We're really looking at 2 distinct timelines here, paying Stroud now versus paying him later. And this is where the financial strategy becomes a high-wire act of microscopic precision. If the Texans wait, if they let this ride into 2027, they aren't just negotiating in a vacuum. They'll be negotiating in a market that is about to be violently and irreversibly reset. Because next year, quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and Drake May are going to become eligible for their own extensions. And with the NFL's television revenue skyrocketing, the salary cap is expanding, which means their agents aren't just going to be asking for $50 million. They'll be using the percentage of the cap to push those deals closer to $60 or even $65 million annually. If Stroud goes out and has a monstrous 2026 campaign, putting a ring on his finger, that $50 million number today might look like an unbelievable discount compared to what he could legally command in 2027. And this connects directly to the Texans' historical DNA. This front office has a definitive, calculated track record. They like to get ahead of the curve. They paid Will Anderson Jr. early, securing him a mega deal of $40 million annually that kicks in down the line. They extended Derek Stingley Jr. for $100 million. They extended Azeez Al-Shaair. They intimately understand the time value of NFL contracts, utilizing void years and rolling guarantees to manipulate the cap space. Paying Stroud a few million less per year right now, beating the Williams and May extensions to the punch, could literally save the crucial cap space required to keep this championship window open.
My job is football, so that's what I'm focused on, just getting better. This quote right here brilliantly illustrates the jarring dichotomy between the billion-dollar corporate panic and the player standing completely still at the center of the storm. While agents, capologists, and executives are agonizing over the shifting sands of the quarterback market, C.J. Stroud is chillingly calm. He has completely compartmentalized the corporate stakes. He's leaving the high-level negotiations entirely to his representation. Instead, Stroud is focusing entirely on the microscopic details of his game. We are talking about hours spent in the dark film room analyzing defensive pre-snap disguise coverages. We're talking about the exact biomechanics of his dropback, refining his footwork so his cleats plant in the exact same spot every single time, maximizing the torque through his hips. He is perfecting the subtle art of keeping his eyes downfield, manipulating safeties with a single glance while a 300-pound defensive tackle collapses the pocket around him. It's a remarkable display of psychological discipline for a player who knows his next signature will literally shift the financial tectonic plates of the National Football League.
But the noise outside the building is deafening. ESPN insider Adam Schefter recently dropped this prediction, adding immense pressure to an already incredibly compressed offseason timeline. Schefter stated his hunch that by the time the 2026 season kicks off, C.J. Stroud will have a new deal. This accelerates everything. The Texans have roughly a month before the brutal physical reality of training camp ramps up. They have just weeks to finalize a deal of unprecedented complexity, ironing out injury guarantees, roster bonuses, and offset language. If they fail, they risk letting this massive financial distraction bleed into the regular season, hovering like a dark cloud over every interception or missed throw. The clock is relentlessly ticking, and the entire league is watching Houston's front office sweat as September draws near. Section 2. Tank Dell's grueling return.
We must now pivot, because while the boardroom battles are fought with calculators and contracts, the true cost of chasing a championship is paid in blood, bone, and excruciating rehabilitation. December 21, 2024. This wasn't a standard injury. It was catastrophic. Tank Dell suffered a completely dislocated knee, but the structural damage underneath the kneecap was horrifying. A torn ACL, a torn MCL, a torn LCL, and severe meniscus damage. His knee joint was fundamentally destroyed. The immediate aftermath required multiple, incredibly complex reconstructive surgeries just to stabilize the leg. But the surgery is only the beginning. Then began the silent, grueling months of physical therapy in completely empty facilities, far away from the roaring crowds. We're talking about the agonizing process of breaking down internal scar tissue, the isolation of walking on an underwater treadmill for hours on end just to wake up atrophied quad muscles. The massive mental hurdle of trusting a surgically repaired joint to plant and cut at 20 miles per hour. We fast forward to the June 2026 minicamp, where Dell was present but not a full participant, carefully managing his flexion degrees and swelling. Now the meticulous sports science plan is to ramp him up in late July during training camp. All of this pain, all of these isolated, agonizing hours of therapy are aimed with laser precision at one specific date, September 13, 2026, the season opener.
So the crucial point is, why are they pushing so hard? What exactly is at stake on the field? We have to remind ourselves of the weapon Tank Dell was before his body betrayed him. Before the injury took him down in 2024, in just 14 games, Dell amassed 51 receptions, 667 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was ranked 3rd on the team in receptions and targets and 2nd in receiving yards. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the microscopic mechanics of how he played. Dell was a master of stemming the defensive back, pushing their blind spot before violently dropping his hips and breaking outward with a suddenness that left elite cornerbacks grasping at air. He possessed this almost telepathic, kinetic connection with C.J. Stroud, knowing exactly when to break off a route when the pocket collapsed. He was the electric connective tissue in this offense. Losing him severed a vital artery of their vertical passing attack. Getting that precise mechanical route running back isn't a luxury, it is an absolute necessity if they want to shatter that 25-year glass ceiling.
The mental toll of knowing your body might never be the same, it's incredibly heavy. Dell openly admits it has been a roller coaster ride. He's had incredibly dark days. Days where the swelling wouldn't go down, where the pain was blinding, and the doubt was creeping in. Adding to this psychological pressure is the cold hard fact that he is only under contract through this 2026 season. His entire financial future, his ability to secure generational wealth for his family, hinges entirely on how this reconstructed knee holds up. Yet, there is profound faith here. He speaks of keeping a level head, trusting his grueling journey, and finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. For Dell, the ultimate reward isn't just a new contract. It was the simple, visceral joy of being back on the grass this spring, feeling the camaraderie of the locker room, and finally catching a football thrown by CJ Stroud again. It's raw, it's human, and it is the resilient heartbeat of this offense.
Section 3. Building a defensive juggernaut.
Let's zoom out for a second, because while the high-drama storylines of Stroud's massive contract and Dell's shattered knee completely dominate the headlines, the brutal historical truth of the National Football League is that offenses sell tickets, defenses win championships. To survive the crucible of a deep playoff run, you need an impenetrable safety net, and the Houston front office has quietly, methodically assembled a terrifying defensive arsenal. This is what they call the Houston formula. When you dive into the minute details of the roster construction, specifically analyzing the most impactful players going into 2026, a shocking pattern emerges. 7 of the top 10 most crucial game-wrecking players on this team do not play offense. They reside on the defensive side of the ball. We're talking about the sideline-to-sideline closing speed of linebacker Azeez Al-Shire, diagnosing run plays before the ball is even snapped. We're talking about Christian Harris and his elite spatial awareness and pass coverage completely taking away the middle of the field. This is not by accident. While the offense has sky-high expectations, the true bedrock of this 2026 crucible rests on an incredibly elite, punishing defense built to strangle opposing game plans.
Look at the absolute monsters they have leading this unit. These are the top 3 highest-ranked impact players on the entire roster. Number 1, Will Anderson Jr. on the edge. He isn't just fast. His technique is flawless. He utilizes a devastating cross-chop pass rush move, bending his hips at an impossible angle around offensive tackles, commanding double teams on every single snap. Number 2, Derek Stingley Jr., the ultimate shutdown cornerback. He possesses fluid hip transitions and elite face control and press man coverage, effectively erasing half the field and suffocating elite wide receivers before they can even get into their routes. Number 3, Daniel Hunter. He bookends the defensive line with Anderson, using his massive wingspan and a heavy-handed bull rush to collapse the pocket from the inside out, creating an inescapable trap. This isn't just a good defense. This is a terrifying, imposing wall of fundamentally sound, violent football players. Opposing offensive coordinators are literally going to lose sleep trying to scheme slide protections against Hunter and Anderson, only to realize that even if their quarterback somehow survives the hit and gets the ball out, Stingley is waiting in the secondary to take it the other way.
And the sheer genius of this front office is that they didn't just rest on their defensive laurels. They analyzed their offensive weaknesses from last season with microscopic precision. In 2025, the offense was wildly inconsistent, prone to stalling out when the vertical passing game was perfectly countered by 2 high safety looks. But in 2026, they have completely refined the offensive line. And critically, they upgraded the run game by acquiring an absolute bruiser in David Montgomery. Montgomery is the ultimate fourth-quarter closer. If the passing game isn't clicking, or if Tank Dell needs more time to find his explosive gear, they can just lean on Montgomery. He gets behind his pads, initiates contact, and physically wears down defensive tackles. He turns 2-yard gains into 4-yard punishing blows, bleeding the clock, moving the chains, and keeping Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter completely fresh on the sideline. They have insulated CJ Stroud with a complete, balanced machine. Every glaring vulnerability from 2025 has been systematically, ruthlessly patched.
Section 4. Unfinished business.
Which brings us to the dramatic crescendo of this massive offseason narrative. The money is literally on the table, waiting for CJ Stroud's signature to permanently alter the league's economy. The players, like Tank Dell, are bleeding for it, sacrificing their bodies to reconstruct shattered joints just to get back on the turf. The general manager has pulled off master strokes of cap manipulation, securing a historically dominant defense while patching the offensive line with a closing running back. Every single piece of the puzzle is finally, meticulously in place. There are no more excuses. The 25th anniversary is here. The roster is loaded. The business is overwhelmingly unfinished. Will 2026 be the year they finally break through? That is the question that will hang over every snap, every practice, and every boardroom meeting in Houston this season. The pressure is absolute. Thank you for diving deep with us today on NFL Nexus. If you appreciate this level of detailed, cinematic breakdown, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, like this explainer, and drop a comment with your prediction. Do the Texans finally reach the AFC Championship this year? And don't forget, become a channel member to support more deep dives just like this. Until next time, keep your eyes on the gridiron.